expired. I yield.
Gentleman's time has expired. With that, the representative from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been in Congress for a while now, so I was in Congress during the time that the Global Engagement Center was formed, and part of the rationale for forming it, and you mentioned it in your opening statement, Mr. Taibbi, to counter the messaging and diminish the influence of international terrorist organizations, including ISIL, Al-Qaeda, and other violent extremists. And the reason it was created was we saw how effective ISIL or ISIS was at recruiting folks, using their messaging, using the internet, the threat that it was to our homeland in terms of creating homegrown threats as well. And we saw some domestic terror attacks. So just a yes/no question. Outside of what it may or may not have morphed into, we still need a tool like that. Would you agree with that, Mr. Weingartner? To counter that messaging?
I believe we should use every means to counter our adversaries lawfully.
And that would include China and Russia. Same thing, Mr. Taibbi, that we do need an effective tool to counter messaging, recruitment, terrorism, domestic terrorism. Whether that's the GEC or not, we do need to be able to counter misinformation, disinformation.
I don't think that's a yes or no answer, Mr. Congressman. For instance, we talk about counterterrorism with Anwar al-Awlaki. Was it appropriate for the United States to assassinate a foreign citizen without due process, even an American citizen? In this case, what became the GEC started off as a counterterrorism program, but it was, as was explained to me, excuse me, sir, by a former GEC employee.
So again, maybe there was
mission switch from CT to CP,
we still need some
counterterrorism to
mechanism by which to,
counterpopulism.
Ms. Jankowicz.
Absolutely. This should be a bipartisan issue, and it's crazy that you even have to ask the question, Congressman.
Right. Ms. Jankowicz, is this threat going to get worse with the evolution of AI?
Oh, absolutely. We are seeing this threat get worse with the evolution of AI already, not just the poisoning or grooming of LLM chatbots like I've already mentioned, but there's evidence from OpenAI and their threat team that China is using AI models in order to more effectively translate Chinese propaganda from Chinese into English and other languages as well.
So this shouldn't be a partisan issue. I mean, when we get sworn into Congress, our most important duty is to protect our homeland, protect against domestic risk. And with the advent of internet, social media, and now AI, information and misinformation, radicalization, self-radicalization, those are going to be hugely important issues. And how we do that within protecting First Amendment rights is not going to be very easy. And again, I would urge Democrats and Republicans in a nonpartisan way to protect our homeland, to try to figure this out, inviting in the private sector as well, inviting in those social media companies to try to get this right. I don't disagree that we saw a lot of politicization around COVID. I'm a doctor, and I'm agnostic on COVID origins. I can make the case that it was a lab leak. I can make the case that it was, and that's legitimate debate, and we shouldn't censor any of that debate. We should have that debate. Obviously it was a novel virus. We're still fighting those fights, and I think it's counterproductive for us as a nation and us as an institution in Congress. I think we do have to put that aside because these threats are very real, and I do worry about what's going to happen with AI. Ms. Jankowicz, in the final minute that I have, what would your recommendations be, taking politics out of this and how we would structure something?
It's really interesting, Congressman, because a lot of the functionalities that you've just described, coordination within the government, following these threats, making sure that we're abreast of them, coordinating with industry, that was the job that I was brought in to do at the Disinformation Governance Board in DHS, despite it being widely lied about. So I think we do need some sort of coordinating function. And if Congress is concerned about the way that, social media companies are moderating and implementing their policies, the solution is not to bandy about conspiracy theories. It's to pass some oversight and transparency regulation, which I think we've been a little bit late on here in the United States. I would love to see that happen.
Great. So I would hope, if we are going to do a State Department authorization bill, that we as Democrats and Republicans on this subcommittee would actually take a thoughtful approach, invite folks in. Maybe if we get it done under a Republican administration, we can take some of the politics out of it. But let's do our job. This is about protecting our country. This is about protecting our influence around the world and fighting against our adversaries. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The representative from Texas, Mr. Self, is recognized for 5 minutes.